Today's guest, as in two, are from Jackson Point, Ontario and St. Catharines, Ontario. One went to Western University and the other to Wilfrid Laurier. One won the 53rd Annual Vanier Cup in 2017, drafted in 2018, and the other drafted in 2019 to the same team, the BC Lions. And I was their coach last year. Huh. Welcome to the show, the Smash Brothers.
Yes, sir.
David Mackie and Mario Villamizar.
That's it. Welcome. Thanks for having us, bro.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
How many people mess up your last name, Mario?
Every single person.
They just call you like I just call you Villamizar. I feel like that's such a like a word, like a Villamizer is somebody that like I don't know. You're
the first person to turn my last name into a verb.
They destroy people.
You're the first person to ever turn my last name into a verb. I appreciate that. No, I've heard it all, man. I've heard Villamizar, Villamizer. Half the time people can't even say it. They'll just look at me. They're like, "Can you please just? I don't want to embarrass you, and I don't want to put you in an awkward situation. Can you just tell me how to say it?" But
what's the origin of that last name?
I don't know. Colombian, probably.
I mean, you don't know.
He doesn't even know.
Parents are Colombian as hell.
Well, yeah, but it could come from somewhere else. It could be like Portuguese or something. For all I know.
What's the origin of your last name? I don't know. I was born in Colombia, but it could be anything.
Two Brazilians went to Colombia, had babies.
It could be Portuguese.
And had babies.
Where's yours from, Mackie?
Yeah,
another Colombian.
Listen, okay, I'm very stereotypically northwestern British. I think. There's red in my beard, and I'm just. My brother did one of those Ancestry.com things, and he came back and he called me. He said, "Can you believe that we are British, Irish, and Scottish?" I'm like, "Kev, look at us." Yeah, no shit.
See, when I tell people I'm Colombian, I get the really every single time. I thought you were either Asian or Hawaiian. Nope.
You're like a mix of Asian and Hawaiian.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were a blend of native and Indian and Italian. So
nice.
I was way up.
Yeah, I get Italian a lot just from Mario.
Yeah, it's the hair and the stash.
It's the.
I thought this was a podcast. Is this a roast?
No.
In training camp, you were like, "Hey Wayne, I'm sorry, but I'm just racially ambiguous."
Yeah,
and that blew his mind.
Some of my high school coaches said that. They're like, "Mario, you're the most racially ambiguous guy ever." They're like, "Colombian, sure. Asian, sure. Hawaiian, sure. You can pass for anything."
So what have y'all been up to this year with COVID going on and everything and missing the season? What's been going on? We'll start with you, Matt.
Well, I've been able to grow my business outside as a strength conditioning coach. So I've been able to pick up a bunch of clients individually and do some one-on-one, but I've primarily been able to work with a lot of sporting teams. So London Basketball Association, London Ramblers, which is a female basketball association, some baseball teams, hockey teams, they're all coming in. I was working back at Western with some of their varsity teams, but with COVID, obviously, the universities, everything shut down, but a bunch of their athletes are trying to come in, which has been good, surround myself with other athletes, and it's tough being motivated with your own personal training. But other than that, I've made a lot of trips down the 403 because Mario and I are planning on taking on the PGA once we retire from the CFL. So I think I think Mario's played 57 rounds of golf in the last 4 months.
Easily.
I think I'm over 40, and I think at least 25 of those are with Mario's.
So that's what kept you busy, Mario?
Yeah, Mackie pretty much answered for both of us. No, I'm actually I just am about to apply to graduate finally from university, which is nice.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna put that application in soon, and then other than that, for the last couple of months, like Mackie said, just kind of I've been enjoying the time off. I've managed to put in a lot of good training sessions and a lot of good in the last 8 months. I've been able to put in a lot of good sessions, so I'm happy with that. And then honestly, just golfing a lot, like Max said. Been out 2-3 times a week, just trying to keep myself busy and wait until this thing's all over so we can get back to playing football. Really.
What are you graduating in? Ethnic studies or?
No, I'm graduating in a major in sociology with a minor in crim.
Border mediation. Perfect.
True detective, huh?
Exactly, man. I got the stash for it already. I look like Starsky and Hutch.
Both of them combined.
At the same time.
Mac, you're coming off of surgery, man. How you doing? How's the knee?
I feel awesome. Like it feels really good. Like I would have been ready to go if we had been in the bubble. I would have been good to go. Like my goal, obviously, was training camp, but we knew that wasn't going to be a thing if it was in May. But I think kind of the silver lining was we all know. I mean, hell, you know how it was in 2019. If I was at 80%, I'd be like, Doc, no, I'm fine. I'm 100%. Like I can go. So I know if there was a season and I was out there and just watching everyone, I would have tried to push through that last little bit of rehab. So I think that silver lining of me not having a season, or all of us not having a season, was giving me that last little 2 months to get from that 80, 85 to 100%. And it's nice to have the peace of mind that as soon as they said there's a potential for a bubble, I knew that I could go out and play. So we just finished. I mean, I was down training with Mario at his facility. We just did Squattober, so he squatted every day the month of October.
Wow.
And then I hit a PR squat 11 months after learning to walk again. So I'll take that. So I'd say the knee feels pretty damn good.
That's good. You speak of the bubble. Now,
Yeah.
last year, I couldn't imagine us being in a bubble.
We were in our own little bubble.
Can you? We'll start with you, Rio. Like, think about this. Like, actually preparing yourself to go into a bubble. And they were talking about Winnipeg, I believe, Winnipeg or Sask or something like that. Could you imagine living in Winnipeg in a bubble for 3 or 4 months?
Can you imagine living in Winnipeg
for 3 or 4 months?
Period.
Just in a bubble, though.
Mac and I talked about this, and we were kind of trying to wrap our heads around like what it would be like and what we would be able to do, what we wouldn't be able to do. I think a lot of like the fun aspect of being a pro athlete is being able to go out and play golf after you practice and get your workday done and hang out with your guys and do all that stuff. So it would have been, I think, really, really tough to just go out there and like have all that taken away from you. Especially like, I mean, the fun that we had going out for dinners and going out for all these different things that we did as a group, as the running backs, right?
Yeah.
So I honestly, personally couldn't imagine what it was going to be like. I guess for me, I don't know. It would have just been tough to like not be able to kind of connect with the team as well as you do when you go out and you have all those dinners and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, Mac, you're a rep, and one of the things that I thought would be better is if everybody was in a hotel bubble in their own city, because every team charters now. Would it not be more sufficient to be able to go from your bubble hotel in your city to practice, and then practice back to the bubble, and then things like that, and then you're going charter out, charter in, and you're just going hotel to field, hotel to travel, hotel to game, right? I think that's probably more sufficient for some guys, other than everybody being in one city. And then how do you work out practice? Like, who gets to practice in the morning? Who practices in the afternoon? Does it rotate?
Mm-hmm.
When y'all talk about those things when you look at the bubble?
There was a million different questions, and I think the new executives that we voted in February when we had our AGM just before COVID hit, it was pretty awesome that we could get that in because they worked pretty tirelessly. Like, even though as reps we were on calls 2, sometimes 3 times a week, I know they were on calls for 2 to 8 hours daily for a couple weeks at a time. And I think the league kind of forced our hand, and they were trying to push it and delay it as long as we could, so then they don't have to look like the bad guys, and we can say, the players didn't give us enough time. Well, we all know it's backwards. Yeah. But I think what caused it to be such a last minute was we as a PA were pushing all those questions. And I know Sully was big for it, Ryan King was big for it, Bowman was big for it, saying, okay, what about the mental health of our athletes? Like, even in a regular season, why we became so close as a group in 2019 was because we're all away from our girlfriends, wives, kids, everything like that. okay, so what do? Well, we create a new family out there, and we get to explore with those, with each other. And we get to go golfing with each other, and we get to enjoy those moments and lifestyle away from our family. And then when we get to go back home, we get to see them. But now, remove us from our family, our normal social circle, stick us in a hotel room with limited resources, all in the same city. We can't leave the hotel. We can't leave the bubble.
Yeah.
Now, what sort of mental health are we going to have for 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks? If we do a full season, 21 weeks, like guys will be losing their minds. And that's why it took so long for us to come to a conclusion, because we weren't going to just sign over saying, okay, yeah, we'll go play in a bubble. But you know, we got juice boxes and buttered bagels coming under the door every day, and you can't do anything but twiddle your thumbs for 8 hours. So
Yeah.
Until we knew we were 100% happy and agreeing upon something that we would all want to go do, there was no chance we were going to do it, right? And I was obviously I was young as a rep, but it's like I'm a big advocate for the bubbles in your own city, but then it always boils down to funding, right? How much money does each team have? Because, you know, what Sask is going to do, they're going to build a metropolis right next door to Mosaic. And guess what? Their boys got a sick-ass hotel and 4 different practice fields. And then we're out in Tent City in BC and enjoying our lives. So it's just, it really boils down to the funding that each team has. And the easiest method is the bubble, where each team has to contribute equally. And until each team, founder, owner, and all want to contribute the same amount of money and risk, then it's almost impossible.
Yeah. You speak about that. Did you see what the NBA bubble was doing, as far as they were all bringing in like wine cellars, and somebody actually ordered a full-size refrigerator for their room, and everything that Amazon was bringing in to that bubble was amazing. But these guys are making millions.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're bringing in cases of wine at a time, right? Could you imagine, like, on a CFL budget, what would you do to pass the time? Because you do have a 4.5-hour practice day, right? I'm pretty sure you're going to be meeting at the hotel. You just go to the field practice, come back, probably have some more meetings, but you still got to stay within that 4.5 hours. But then just living in that hotel room, even though you get your own room, that's still got to be incredibly hard.
I would have no idea. I'd lose my mind. I mean, I don't play video games. I don't sleep. Yeah. I don't do anything else. But I don't do anything but work out and golf in my off time. And if you can't even do that, because then it's like, okay, you're just going to have 8 different gyms. You're going to have 9 different gyms. You're going to have 1 gym. Like, how does that work? Can we leave? Our average workday. Like, me and Mario were there at 6 a.m. And are we not allowed to go?
We leave till 3 or 4. Well, just think about even how tough it was during COVID, when everyone had to stay indoors and like nothing was open, right? Like Mackie would call me for 2.5 hours. We would go on walks just because there was nothing else to do. Now we can't even do that. Like, we can't even leave the hotel room in Winnipeg. You can't even go for a freaking walk. Like, that's tough mentally. Tough. I wouldn't want, like, mentally, when it came down to football, I wouldn't want to play football at the end of the day. I don't think. I would be so drained and so mentally, just like, without seeing my family, without seeing my friends, without seeing anyone. It would be way too tough, I think.
I remember one time in high school, our game, it was pouring down raining. We went through like pregame, so everybody's got their stuff on. You go through pregame, it starts to rain, then it starts to hail, thunder, lightning. They delay the game. It's supposed to start at 7:30. It is now around 8:30. Guys are eating every power bar in the locker room. They're running and jump. You know how those Coke machines, like guys are running and jumping into the Coke machine and just throwing them back out. I tell you what, they finally canceled the game around 9:30, 10 o'clock. They finally said, you know what, this is not going to happen. And when I got home, I felt like I'd played a game. Just from being so restless in the locker room, getting ready to go play a game in football, and you're pumped up. You know, you've taken your pregame and you're eating power bars and stuff, and now you're just sitting there anxious, ready to go out and play, but you can't, right? So I could just imagine being in that hotel room. Would they put 2 teams in one bubble hotel, and then could you talk to that team? Because now if one person gets it, that affects 2 people, and it's just so hard.
It's crazy. Well, I agree. Like when you're telling that story, there was a game in my last year at Western, and we were playing Guelph like week 2, and we were supposed to kick off at 7, and midway through warm up, lightning and everything comes in. So we go inside, and 8 o'clock rolls around, more lightning. 8:30 rolls around, more lightning. And so then the officials basically said, okay, well, I think it was a rule with noise violations in the city. Like we had to kick off at a certain time or else we'd be past whatever the noise complaint or lights are on.
Yeah.
And our head coach, G Marsh, is like, we're effing playing this game. And they're like, well, sir, what if we don't kick off by 9:30? You can't. He's like, we're playing. I don't want to hear it. So the other coach was like, all right, I guess we're playing. And they're like, well, we can always play another time. No, we're playing today.
We're playing, yeah.
Now they said you have to kick off by 9:30. And at like 9:27, everyone saw lightning strike, all the players. And G Marsh just said, I didn't see that. So he comes in the locker room. So yeah, because like he didn't want to lose a game. So we go in. He comes in the locker room, and he's like, "Boys, we're playing." And so after 2.5 hours after when we were supposed to kick off, we go out and kick off at like 9:37, and the game finished because we had an extended halftime because of rain. So we finished at like 1:15 in the morning. And it also went into double overtime. Mm-hmm. And it was the most exhausting game.
Did you win?
Yeah, we did.
Good luck. I'm glad you didn't lose because he'd have been so pissed off.
I would have fucking lost my mind. I would have absolutely lost my mind. And we played terrible. We go out and we just waited 2.5 hours. And how we won the game, it may have been the worst performance of Western football in a decade. I think the first play of the game, I went the wrong direction. Then the next play of the game, our guards pulled into one another, and then our center went offside, snapped too early, and we somehow marched the field. It was outrageous, but we won.
Oh, so that's crazy.
That's a 7-hour game, eh?
It was outrageous.
Or even more, right? Like what time? Okay, you guys kick off at 7. You probably showed up at the stadium at what, 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yep.
Around there to leave at 1 a.m. Whole.
How early do you get to the stadium before games?
Well, I used to be really weird in college. I gave myself a good 24 hours, and I was so terrified of college games. I just want to go. I was like, man, I got one shot at this, and I got to go pro, so I got to be really good. And I was good for a good 36 hours before the game. I was weird, and my girlfriend knew it. She'd call me like the morning before. If we played on the Saturday, it'd be like 9 a.m. on the Friday. She'd call me and be like, "Are you weird yet?" And I'd be like, yeah, I'm weird. And I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to eat anything. I was just like in my own little world. So I would get there like 4 hours early, and I did the same march around the field. And then after my first pro game, when I was just like so excited to be there, I was like, man, what's the worst that happens? I just get cut and I go work a regular job. And I was just, I was like so relaxed. I was like, wow, why didn't I do this for years? Like, so I get there like early enough to warm up, but nothing crazy.
Yeah. What about you,
I
Rio?
mean, yeah. Well, for the pros, I would like to get there before chapel, or at least like to not miss chapel. But other than that, I don't like to show up too early. I get too antsy, too anxious. I'd rather just show up. I have my superstitions and everything with like how I put like my walk before the game. I call my parents. I do all that, and then the way I kind of like put my uniform together and whatnot. But as soon as like I put that on, I just want to be out there. I hate sitting around. I hate the whole waiting game. I just want to go and play.
Yeah.
So probably like an hour and a half, probably before we actually the locker rooms close down.
Yeah, I was the same way. I remember one time my rookie year, I forgot my cleats, and I forgot all my pads in my pants. So I had no knee pads, no thigh pads. And I get to the game, and I'm unloading my bag, and I'm like, what the hell was I doing yesterday packing my bag? Like, I had some Jumpman Jordans on. Luckily, we were playing in Sask, and they had the old field turf, so I played in the shoes I wore to the stadium.
No way.
No, come on.
I spatted up some all-white Jumpman Jordans.
Oh, my God.
I actually have a picture. I hurdled a guy at the 5-yard line, landed at like the 1, and rolled into the end zones for a touchdown with my Jumpman Jordans on. But I never wore pads in my pants after that game again. Until my last year when they made it mandatory that you had to put your knee pads and thigh pads in.
No, was that a superstition?
Yeah.
No. It was just like man, it's
Comfortable.
just like freeing because if you think about it, those pads are so thin by the time you cut them up and make them thin. And
They're useless. They're useless.
some people just
Yeah.
used to put the plastic in, right?
Mhm.
So they would cut the
Yep.
foam off
All
of
the
it
foam off. Yeah.
and just put the plastic in, but you get hit on your thigh, that plastic's going in your leg and it hurts more,
Plastic shatters.
right? Back in the day,
It just leaves-
if you look like 10 years ago, guys would roll their pants up above their knees.
Yeah.
So then your socks covered up the rest. So now it's just like playing in the field, right? You wasn't playing on hard turf anymore. That was the only thing about your knees if you fall on the hard turf. But now everything's pretty soft, and it was cool, man. It's freeing. It's almost like going out and playing in spandex, and you have nothing else. You know, John Cornish, I remember he bought a butt pad and some thigh pads his first year because he was like, "Where's the butt pad and thigh pads?" They're like, "We don't play with butt pads, thigh pads."
Oh, those big kitten pads, those big kitten things you weave the belt through.
Yes. So he bought it. He bought his own, and he wore it the first couple games as a rookie.
Wow.
I've never
I'm pretty
forgotten
sure-
anything. I've never forgotten anything to a game, but at least once a month or once every other month, I'll wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare, just showing up to a game, not having my helmet, not having my shoulder pads, and not having my cleats. And I'm just looking around like, what the fuck is going on? And just wake up in a deep sweat.
my first game at Western, I was like in shambles. I don't know. I was like, oh my God, I'm finally dressing. And we're walking out we're heading to Windsor. And I see everyone else's road bag and it looks ginormous. And mine just looks like flaccid, like there's nothing in it. I'm like, man, what? Like, so then everyone I throw it under the bus. And then I was like, oh, it still doesn't feel right. So I unlock it. I do not have my shoulder pads in there. And so I just ran back inside. It's just this giant road bag with just one helmet. So it's just like so big, it just collapsed. And so I run back inside and get my shoulder pads. I'll never forget that. So now it's like before I'm like sitting there, I'm like, okay, leg pads, shoulder pad, neck. Head,
Oh, I dress myself socks up.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, make sure you don't forget.
Pants on 2 legs at a time, like a normal person.
Speaking of dreams, though, like every time I have a sports dream, even now, I'm always forgetting, or I'm in super slow motion. Like everybody's running fast, and I'm slow, and I'm falling down, and I can't stand up, or something's always going wrong.
See, that's my real life.
That's I was just saying, are you that's just the fullback life.
Yeah, that's every day.
That's what we've been living through the last 10 years. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Way to rub it in, Nick. After your retirement, you're dreaming of that. Wow.
Everyone's running faster than you.
I did have a dream. I did have a dream probably a couple months ago that I came back to the Stamps. It was like they were going into the playoffs. They needed somebody. I came back, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to play. It was just crazy. I'm never playing again. Trust me.
Ever.
It sounds good in theory.
You just got to do more of the hip exercises we were doing during training camp.
Oh man.
I still do them. I still do them. Everybody was laughing at us, and everybody was good, feeling good.
Man, you know what? I think when
Rutley still does. Yeah, Rutley still does.
Rudd doing them before games, but we talk about equipment. I'm pretty sure if Rudd had came back for a bubble in 2020, he would have had those volleyball knee pads on. He would have had a full girdle. I think he'd have padded shoes with like hockey skate tongues.
His warm-up routine before games was probably my favorite. Out in center field with the Karate Kid headband on and just doing the hip stretches.
He looked like Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Yes. Then you have me, Mackie, and Wayne out there doing full-on 30-yard sprints, and he's just like, "What are you three doing?"
I would see that, and my pregame warm-up, I would just be looking at people like me and Cope would go out on the field. We would do a little, high knees and stuff, little plyo stuff, and get some stretching in. But then we would just throw the ball back and forth, get some catches in, running side to side, and then we would go in. It was take about 20 minutes. But when Cope left in 10, I never went back outside anymore. I hate thinking about the game until the game gets there.
I was thinking of my knee, and I need to get it as warm as possible.
Yeah, you'd have that big knee brace on. You'd be out there sprinting. I'm like, yeah, Mackie's right today. Mackie's gonna be all right today.
I was like, listen, there's two single injections and two total injections. I need to move this through my bloodstream ASAP.
Wow, that pregame. So when did you start playing sports? What was the first sport, and at what age were you when you first started?
You go ahead.
I was probably 5 years old, and I started with soccer. Good old Colombian kid, you know.
So now you're Colombian again.
Well, yeah. Hey man, up until probably like 10 or 11 years old, it was just soccer. Like my dad would drive me to every single practice. He would lived and breathed for soccer. And then after that, once I got to high school is kind of where I started growing, and I got too fat to play soccer. So then they looked at me like, "You're big enough to play football." So then they threw me in football.
What did you play when you first started playing football?
Quarterback.
Okay.
What about you, Matt? Off the bat.
I kind of played whatever. Like I didn't really play organized sports until I would say maybe I was like 11 or 12, and I started with baseball. And I loved baseball. I was good. And then they were like, "Hey, so there's nothing left in our small town that is competitive. So you'd have to drive to so-and-so, and it's this expensive." My parents were like, "Well, that's too expensive. We don't have a car. So kid, no more baseball." And that was the end of baseball. So then I went to like basketball and volleyball in elementary school. And then I went to high school, and I thought I was a basketball player. And then I got cut from grade 9 basketball. So I was no longer a basketball player. And then football started in grade 10, and I was like, I could probably manage this. And then I played quarterback, same as Rio, and I was pretty damn good.
So is it just the best athlete plays quarterback in Canadian high school, or how did you transform into the quarterback? Was it just yeah?
I think it was.
I could throw the ball the furthest.
Yeah. I started at tight end, and I was just long and lanky. I think I was like the same height I am now, but only like 170. And then, which I guess was a big 10th grader. But after about 2 weeks, they were like, "All right, well, we got this sweet tight end, but we have no one to throw him the ball." So then I just started playing quarterback and ran exclusively.
Yeah. I was a quarterback in high school.
So, of course you were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, only my senior year, though, because, the rest of the years we had a quarterback, but a lot of people graduated. And the head coach just basically looked at me and said, "You can play quarterback and touch it every play, or play receiver, and we can hope to get it to you 5 times a game." I said,
and
"I'll touch it every play."
And you know what? As I get older, that is the high school coach cop-out of, "Hey, listen, man, I only have 2 athletes, and I don't know enough to coach everyone. So I'm going to put it in your hands every play and make you make the decisions."
From grade 10 and on, I was bigger than my O-line every single year.
Wow.
Every single year.
My high school was so bad. There was one game where I played linebacker, guard, and quarterback.
You played guard? I never got on the O-line.
I never
got on the O-line.
I ran in one game for like 150 yards with fumble rooskies at guard.
Nice.
We were so bad. And I think we won like 4 games in my entire high school career. Like it was
wow.
bad.
Nice.
How is it mentally losing games like that?
What's that?
I said, how is it mentally losing games like that in high school when you lose so much? Like, do you see? Because obviously you're playing, you're hoping to play in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're constantly losing, how are you viewing that? Is it hard to go through?
My thing was like I didn't really think about college because no one in my family had really gone to school.
Yeah.
So I didn't. It wasn't something I really thought about. Oh, I want to go to university until my final year. Then I was like, okay, wow. Like scouts started coming to games and shit, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm pretty good at this. So in my mind, it was like, regardless if I'm winning or losing, this might be the only football I get to play in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't get to play basketball because I guess I wasn't good enough. I didn't get to play baseball or hockey or anything competitive because we didn't have the money. So this is a sport I get to play competitively, and this might be the last sport I get to play. So I didn't really think about winning or losing at the time, as much as obviously it sucked to lose. Like every week, it was like, oh, well, we're playing so-and-so and we lost by 40 last time. So if we lose by 39, I guess that's a win. And it got to the point where when I first started playing, my dad was like, just have fun. And then it got to the point where my dad was like, just be safe.
Don't get hurt today.
Like, okay, son, just don't do anything stupid. But I don't know. It wasn't until my last year where I was like, okay, I want to be competitive. But then it just turned into, as long as I perform well, maybe I get to go to college. So there was less pride around winning or losing, because my first year of football was the first year the football team existed at that school.
Oh, okay.
So we had no expectations, really. So we just started the football team, and it's like, okay, we don't expect to go out there and win games because we don't really have football players. So I think the year after I left, they ended up winning cities. So it just took a long time for the team to grow. So it wasn't too bad.
I know. I'm trying to think back, because I had a year in grade 10 where I think we went like 1-7. And I'm trying to think like back to like how I approached losing all the time and whatnot. Because I mean, we weren't very good, but like Max said, like I enjoyed playing football so much that just going out there and being competitive and like letting myself know that I played as well as I could have, and that's all that happened. Like I loved football so much that I was like, you know what? Just keep chipping away at it. I think we're gonna end up winning at some point. And then the next year we won the city championship, which was kind of nice.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, I never really, I don't know. Losing sucks as much as it does, but I just like the competition, to be honest.
In Texas,
And winning, winning is just a plus.
In Texas, I always talk about the programs that Texas high school football players have, where you have $100,000 strength coaches and you have all these people in place that help you to develop, right? What is Canada, where you're from in Ontario? How was the process of getting to the game, after the game, workouts? Was it team-wise or was it on your own? Like, how was that process for you guys in high school?
All right, go ahead, Rio.
We had practice. You show up to practice, and that was it. There
No
was
weights,
really
no nothing.
weight training. No weight training. No film. Nothing like that. You would show up in high school. You would play the game, and then you would practice 3 or 4 times a week, and that was it. I didn't know how to like approach training and whatnot. So I didn't really start training until I got to university, because I didn't have anyone to really like mentor me or tell me, hey, like you should be lifting this much and training this much and doing this and doing that and going about it this way.
Yeah.
I would honestly play the football season, and the football season would end. And as soon as that ended, depending on how well we did, I would have 1 or 2 weeks, and then I would go right into basketball. And then I would play the basketball season up until February. And then right around that time is when like Spears, like our kind of like rep football would start, our travel football.
Yeah.
And then I would go out for that. And then that would take me up until August. And then high school football would start again. And then the whole year would start again. So there was really no weights, no nothing. No one really telling me, hey, you should eat this. Hey, you should train this. Hey, you should lift these weights. Nope. It was just straight sports all year round.
Same for you, Matt?
Mine's a little different. Like I went to, my high school's pretty sweet. Like I went to a school that is for sports. So it's Bill Carter Secondary School in Markham. Shout out to them. It is a sport for healthy, active living in sports. So you actually have to apply to this school. It's a public school. It's not a private school, but you have to apply with an application from your elementary school principals and coaches and sports, and then along with your grades. So they want like highly academic students that participate in a healthy, active lifestyle. And even though I didn't necessarily play a high level of sport at the time, or played competitive sports because my parents couldn't really afford it, it was something that my elementary school coaches and principal advocated for, saying, okay, he wants to live a life of healthy, active living. He just doesn't have the opportunity.
That's awesome.
It was a really cool school. It's crazy now. Like my first year in the school, there was 300 kids, and now there's like 1,600 kids. Like going back to it now, I'm like, this place is fucking crazy. But it's, I was pretty fortunate that they brought in a strength. My second year, the school hired a strength coach, and there's 2 gyms, a plyometric studio, everything like that. So I got to learn more about myself as an athlete and strength training. And I think that's what really blew my mind in the strength training industry outside of sports at a young age. So I got a pretty good exposure to strength training. But in terms of the football, once we started, it was the first year the football program existed. So all the energy was just making sure that it could stay afloat. So it's like, let's just get enough players, but there was no football players because everyone comes to the school to play their sport. So because there was a football team, no one came to the school to play football. So we were recruiting hockey players and baseball players and basketball players. So we had just a bunch of misfits that we tried to put together on the field. And our coaches were like, listen, can you guys at least try to make it to 1 or 2 practices? Okay, well, coach, I got hockey practice and I got basketball. It's like, okay, go. It was basically whatever guys we have at practice. If that's 10 guys, if that's 20 guys, we'll do whatever work we can. And then we'll just go into games with whatever we had practiced. And it got a little better as time went on, just because the program had existed more.
Yep.
But it's that same problem that Mario mentioned, that the football guys, they played basketball or they wrestled in the winter. And then after that, they played rugby in the spring. And then they go home for the summers and they do nothing. If anything, maybe clubs like how Mario played Spears.
Yep.
And then August rolls around. Well, here we are. We're recruiting hockey players and wrestlers and basketball players to try and play football again. So there was just no culture around, I'm a football player. I represent like the football team. I identify as that. I want to train for football specifically. It's more, I'm an athlete. In the fall, I participate in football. And then outside of that, I'll wrestle or I play basketball. But they self-identify more as other athletes as opposed to football players. So there was no culture around it. But now I went back and I gave one of my jerseys to the principal, and it's a new principal. And she just poured a bunch of money into the program. She wants the team now to be part of the private school sector with St. Andrews College and UCC and everything. So they just put a new scoreboard up, a new turf field.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, listen, if we turn private, we can actually recruit football players now. And so now we've got these great facilities that we can actually recruit and bring in football players. So that's going to be pretty cool moving forward. And I'll at least see the program that I started in 2009 and we were garbage is now actually finally getting some recognition. So that'll be cool.
That's awesome.
That's
real
awesome. Mac, do you guys ever get to run 12-on-12 or no?
Yeah, so we ran 12-on-12 my whole year, every year of high school. But now everyone's pulled so many, as soon as that movie Concussion came out, it single-handedly killed football in York Region and north of Toronto. And for the last 2 years, I always thought, maybe I'll go back and watch one of my high school games. But they only had enough to field 9 players aside. Not just my school.
Yeah, you were saying about that.
But every other school in the area could only play 9 versus 9.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty brutal.
That's pretty crazy.
I don't think ever through because I did a fifth year. I did a victory lap of high school. All through my 5 years, I don't think we ever fielded 12-on-12 for practice. Ever.
Talk to me. Wait a second. Talk to me about this victory lap. What is it?
12
baby.
Baby.
What is a? Wait a second. Wait a second.
All the best Canadian athletes do the victory lap.
Oh yeah.
You call it a victory lap? Wait. You call it a victory lap by going back to high school.
Fucking ready. Oh yeah.
Talk to me about this victory lap. What is it?
Go ahead, Rio.
Personally, I did it because I didn't know what I wanted to study yet, and I didn't know where I wanted to go to university. A lot like Mackie, I don't think the thought of university came around for me probably grade 11, grade 12. And at that point, I don't want to say it was too late because I was still taking university courses and whatnot, but I hadn't really reached out to other universities when it came to football or when it came to actually what I wanted to study. So I finished my grade 12 year and I was like, you know what? I don't want to rush into just jumping into some random program that I might not like. So, and honestly, going to university is pretty expensive. So I was like, I'll come back for a fifth year, kind of look more into what I'm interested in when it comes to career choices and whatnot. And then I'll go about it next year.
What do you
and honestly, it was the best thing.
But what do you do?
You go back
and
you
still
just
play football? Can you still?
Yeah, you can go back. You can play football. You can take new courses if you want to take new courses. You can bump up any marks that you needed to bump up that you potentially didn't get into university because of. It's honestly for me, I would have been way too immature going into university at the age of 18. That extra year of high school really helped me. Yeah, you do everything regularly. Dave can tell you better. you play football, you just take
man,
pretty much take courses.
So
Like it's
there's two positives. One,
yeah.
you have the best time of your life because football is so easy because you are almost 19 playing high school football and it's hilarious. But then it's
But you've already
awesome.
graduated though.
Yeah.
You've already graduated,
So
but
you can't. So you can't fail.
No. Like you can just go.
That's the beauty of it.
You can go.
Victory lap.
Yeah, so you can go. And so what I did, I only needed one semester. Like I went back to work. Like my dad got sick, so I was like, okay, I'm not ready to go to university. University's expensive. I don't know what I want to do. I don't really have any guidance. My parents don't know what the hell university costs or what I should do. So I went and I just took 2 courses. I had a spare first thing in the morning, and then I had gym class with the football coach, and then I had lunch, and then I had calculus and biology in the afternoon, and then football practice. So it's like it was awesome. Like it was so much fun. But I only went for 1 semester, and then I had a full semester off. So I worked from December until August before I went to university. So I got to work full time for 8 months and put some good money away, and that paid for residence in my first year, whatnot, because the scholarships in Canada don't cover anything more than $4,500. So
Yeah,
it's like if it wasn't for that 8 months, I wouldn't like. I needed a laptop for school. I needed extra money, meal plans and stuff like that. So there's not like I went to school. The thing with going to that the secondary school, there was a lot of money that a lot of the students had, and I was very different compared to a lot of the students. And you have to get permission from the principal to come back for a year because they obviously know that a bunch of goons will come back and it's win-win. They get to play football. They don't have to study because as soon as football season's done, they can leave. And it didn't cost them anything. So it's very much okay. Are you going to come play football, study, and then leave? And I think it was great for me. Like Mario said, maturity levels. Just you're 1 year wiser going to university. And then you get to enter university at legal age, which is awesome.
Which, I mean, it's great for...
I mean, in Alberta, it's 18. But
yeah.
So I want to go back to this real quick. We'll start with you, Mac.
Yeah.
How did you end up at Western? How did you pick Western and missing, just doing everything from your victory lap to Western? How did that process go? And how did you decide there?
So it wasn't, we kind of touched on it earlier. It's like, I didn't know university was going to be a thing, right? Yeah. There was no guidance. It's not that my dad told me not to go to university. He just, and my mom, they just didn't really know the options, right? And I started getting recruited my last year, and then it just kind of blew up. Like I said, as much as football was really fun in your victory lap, you're better than everyone, so your exposure is that much higher, right? You got better film, and I started getting options kind of all over Ontario, some out east, some out west. And then when I finished my season, I also got to finish my academic courses. So I knew exactly which grades I had, so I could go to every university and say, hey, here's my grades. Where can I get in? And I narrowed it down. There were some schools that just right away I didn't want to do. Like I didn't want to live in Toronto. I wanted to be close enough to home that if my dad got sick again or something like that, I could always get on a train and come home. And that's why I was close to going out to Manitoba and Calgary, but then that just, if I barely had the money to get to school, if something were to happen, I couldn't really afford to just hop on a plane and get back. So I narrowed it down to McMaster and Western and those schools just academically, because I figured if I'm going to university, I'm going to be the first in my family. I might as well get a degree that carries some weight, right? Like those names alone academically carry some good weight. And I went to Western and I did 3 different trips just to ensure I knew what I was doing, and partied my face off for like 3 different trips. And
I went 3 different trips. I don't remember any of it.
Oh yes, the first one was great. I can't remember it, so I had to do a second one.
So I had to go again.
I had to do a third one, and I had such a great time, just the culture with the guys, and like we said, I barely won a game in high school, so to have an opportunity to go and play for a team that I'm like, wow, they only lose 1 or 2 games a year, and I can totally dive into a culture that is so developed and the traditions are amazing that I didn't get that when I first started playing. was kind of cool. And so I chose Western, and yeah, I loved it. So
Rio, what about you? How'd you get to Wilfrid Laurier?
Be honest, and I say this, it's funny enough. I thought for the longest time I was going to end up at Western. In my grade 12 year is kind of where I started really getting the recognition from, like, not so much from high school, but more so from Spears. At that point, I was playing Zed, I was playing receiver and whatnot. So again, I got offers from like Windsor and all these different places, but I thought Western from the jump. And then I went to a couple visits there, never did anything overnight. Really liked it. And then I met Michael Folds, I think, right before my victory lap started. Right victory lap in like 2014. And he just straight up said, "Hey, I'm down for a visit. We'll get you in for a game. Come in the locker room. You can stay the night, whatnot." And I already had a couple friends from my high school that went to Laurier already. And honestly, as soon as I stepped on, it felt like home. At no point in time I was like, well, Western this, well, Western that. And literally I stayed the night. I went into Folds' office the next morning. I was like, "Hey man, where's the paper? Like I want to sign. This is where I want to be for the next 4 or 5 years of my life." And signed the paper right away. And that's where I ended up. It was pretty quick, to be honest. Like even before my victory lap was done, I was signing. I had already signed, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It happened pretty quick. It just felt like home. It felt right. I mean, it was at a point where the program where they had just, I think, gone 1-8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or 1-7. And I thought I could go in and play right away. And I wanted to be part of a change and part of that, building that culture, like kind of like Mackie did in his high school. And I wanted to do the same thing with Laurier. So did that, and I'm happy with it. Yeah.
What would you like to see changed in Canadian college, the CIS or the U Sports? What is something that you think there should be more of, or something that you would like to see change to not only help the athletes, but help the programs gain more money and just create better and better situations for the players?
I think there's a lot of flaws in terms of the connection between the student life and sports. And it's unfortunate that Western in recent years has tried to dissociate students and partying and culture and traditions and university sports because they want to be known as an academic school and everything like that. In my first 2 years, that's when Sportsnet was still in contract with CIS, and there was over 16, 17,000 people at Canadian University game. We were televised. Students were having parties all day. They would march down to the game. It was incredible atmosphere. And my first game that I visited Western was on homecoming, and I was like, holy shit, I gotta come here. Like, this is, you don't see it anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
And then my second year was great, same thing. Then third year, they said, no, we don't want homecoming to be about partying. They want it to be about alumni and donations and funding. So they moved the event to the last game of the year, and that's the end of October. It's cold, it's snowy. Students don't want to be outside partying, and it also coincides with the busiest academic week and Western schedule. So now students are saying, even if I was willing to deal with the snow and the cold, I've got 3 midterms this week and I can't go to party. Where my first 2 years before I was there, it was the second week of September. It's beautiful, it's warm. There's keg parties all the way down Main Street. Brofdale was full of people. It's like a sea of purple and white. And I remember like coming, I was walking to my first homecoming dress, and everywhere you look, people are partying. Like, it got you so excited to play the game because I'm walking from my student house to the game, and there's thousands of people running around the city partying, coming to watch it at 1. And they just tried to pull that apart. And right away, Sportsnet doesn't want to film games anymore because it just looks empty and it's boring. Secondly, students are saying, well, I don't want to go. And if it turns into a social thing, oh, Mario, are you going? No, I can't. I got a midterm. Oh, okay, then I won't go. And, that happens to 35,000 students across campus. And now we've only got a couple thousand people and it's just family, friends, and some people in the environment or the community. And now the culture's starting to fizzle, which really sucks.
Yeah, very unfortunate. What about you, Rio? What do you think about that?
That's tough. I completely
Thanks,
agree. I
Mark.
mean, the same thing happens at Laurier. I mean, the same thing happens at Laurier. You know, like there's a huge disconnect from like people wanting to come out to the games. We always joke about like the stands being completely empty, but like we don't get Sportsnet and all that stuff anymore. We have 2 games a year that are completely packed, and we're only for the first half. The first game is homecoming. Everyone leaves at halftime because everyone's gotten drunk and done whatever they wanted to do, and now they want to go out and party on the street.
Yeah.
And the other game that we actually get fans is when they do like a student game where they bring all the kids from the feeder schools, the high schools, and elementary schools from around Kitchener, and they'll bring those kids in. But then same thing, they'll bring them in for the first half, but then they got to get out of there to go back to school because they have to take all the buses back home. So a huge disconnect between actually having fans and like what you can actually do and whatnot. And from Laurier, like the biggest thing and it all comes down to money, but it's just having better. We don't have an athlete only gym Laurier. I know Western they do, but we share the gym with all the other students from Laurier, right? It all comes down to funding, but we don't have that. You look at D1 schools in the States, and they have 3-4 different gyms, 3-4 different facilities that the athletes can use. Just the biggest disconnect here. Like we don't have that. We don't have really meal plans for athletes. We don't have any of that stuff. And I mean that just comes down to money again. But that's where I would like to see it grow, because there's just a big disconnect, I think.
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate part to add to that, sorry, Nick, is that it's crazy because even when we talked earlier about the bubble model and it boils down to funding, everywhere in Canada, I find the problem with sport, it boils down to how much money we have that goes towards it, which is the same in the US. But the US doesn't mind putting more and more money into athletics because they see the benefits that it does for the community and the benefits that it does towards lifestyle changes for young athletes and the influence that has on the athletes. Where in Canada, they'd rather put their money into something else, which is unfortunate because you see so many youth athletes go to waste because they didn't have the opportunity. The culture around sport isn't there because I don't even see an advertisement. Yeah. Well, we'd rather put that advertisement into something else. And it just sucks that it always boils down to funding, but there's no other way to dance around it. Like it's just, if there's no money there, no time, then people aren't going to see it and recognize it as something that they want to be a part of. And then they're not going to obviously send their money in, and then it's just a vicious circle.
Well, I'm working on something to bring some more notoriety and some more income to the CIS game right now that we're planning on launching in 2021, because it's a huge benefactor to have these kids be in a place where they can thrive, right? But we need people in the stands. Like my brother's high school was making around $120,000 to $150,000 a home game, right? And this is the high school in Texas. And the reason is they put money into it. They advertise, they do things. You got to and I always believe people will support who they know. If you get out into the community and people know you, they will support you, right? So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. And I appreciate that feedback, because one, it helps me out on what I'm trying to do, but it also gives people at home a sense of, this is what the players that play there, this is how they feel, this is what they see. And even it's almost like the school self-sabotaging itself. I mean, homecoming is supposed to be fun. Everybody coming back is not in school. Homecoming is people coming back to represent that school for that weekend, and they want to have fun. So why not put them in a position to have the most fun that you can have, right? So, that's really shitty.
I think too, it's the biggest thing. Like my roommate and I were talking about it, is that it's worrisome because talent is going to start leaving. There's more and more Canadians going across the border for school.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what I was just going to say. Yeah.
They understand that, one, the culture is going to be awesome. They're going to play in front of a bigger crowd. They're going to be taken care of. Their education is going to be paid for, right? And then they get to stick around on there. And obviously they have a great shot at coming back and playing in the CFL or NFL. But now the talent level in Canada is going to drop because all the best athletes are going to start going south, because why would they stay here if they can go down there for a better community and better feel and better education, whatever it is. And it's sad because you don't want to go back and look back 10 years from now when we get to go back to a homecoming game, Western versus Laurier, and the talent's not there because for years the school didn't want to put money in.
Exactly.
Money into
And
it.
now
Yeah.
the product on the field is just, it's less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
At what
Well,
point,
you see all these guys going down south already, like you said, right? And they're thriving and they're doing well. So I mean, athletes here, we just don't have, we don't have the money. It boils down to.
we've got to create the income for it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
When did you believe that you could play at the next level? When talking about going pro, like at what point was there a game that happened that you were like, you know what, I got a shot, or what was it that gave you that confidence that, you know what, I could play in the CFL or the NFL?
It's funny enough, I went to watch one of the guys that I played with at Laurier play in Toronto. Godfrey Onyeka. I went to watch him play in Toronto for the first time.
Yeah.
And I took my mom, and we were just sitting there watching the game. And I'm looking around, I'm watching the game, and I looked at my mom, and I was like, I can play there. I know I can do it. And it was my going into my fourth year at Laurier. And that's when I really kind of like sat down. I was like, you know what, I can do that. I know I can compete with those guys. I can keep up with those guys. I'm strong enough. I'm fast enough. I know I can do it. And that was kind of like the big eye opener. Yeah.
Yeah. Mackie?
Mac?
Mine was always feedback from other guys. Like I wouldn't say I'm super self-deprecating, but I oftentimes like try and humble myself because as much as I'm thinking I want to go pro and all the work that I put into it, whether it's coming back for an injury or prep for games and stuff, I didn't start until my 5th year. And it was always feedback of guys saying, hey, don't worry, your time will come. You'll have an opportunity. Don't worry about it. And it was guys that had either been drafted and gone pro and either been cut or gone pro and stuck around. And they would come back to Western games or practices and be like, hey, Mac, like you can hang at the next level. You can be very talented. And I was like, okay, sure, good feedback. Now, in my mind, I was like, now I got to work just as hard to prove that guy right? Like if he sticks his neck out, he's like, oh, I'll talk to my coordinators about you, or special teams coordinator. I'll let him know. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I got to thank guys like, Preston Huggins was one of our linebackers who got drafted in Hamilton. They asked him to move to fullback, and he called me and was like, bro, you need to teach me something about fullback. And I was like, why is this guy calling me? There's other guys, but okay. Talking to guys like Darryl Watt when he was in Toronto, Liram, just different guys that kept telling me, like, hey, keep putting the time in. Like, I know you're not seeing the field right now, but you'll get your chance in college, and then you'll easily go pro. And I was like, okay. So it was just one of those things where it was awesome reassurance from those guys when I was putting in those work, and I wasn't sure if it was going to pay off, and just hearing it from them saying, like, hey, if you work the way you're doing, you keep playing the way you're doing, you'll have a shot. So shout out to those boys.
We talked about the high school workouts earlier. Now the college workouts, when did you start to take those as serious as you do now? Like when you were in college, were you spending a lot of time on your own lifting weights? Was it in the program, or how was that?
The strength training program at Western is pretty awesome. Like Jeff Watson is the head strength coach at Western. He's incredible. He does an awesome job with the football team. So it's very well known. Like day 1 or 2 of training camp, every single rookie has a mandatory lift, and he gets his hands on you for the first time, and he just beats the shit out of you on day 2. And it's basically like, this is the standard of training here. And I loved that because it's funny. It's you think you know about football until you go to college, and you think you know about football until you go to pro. And it was the same as like I thought I knew my way around the weight room in high school, and then I showed up to college. I was like, oh man, I know nothing. And then I graduated university and got into my professional career as a strength coach, and I was like, man, I really knew nothing. And if I knew what I knew now back then, but of course you can't really live retrospectively, but I dove in year 1, and it was a couple guys, Alex May and James Safakis were the 2 fullbacks at the time. And when I got switched to fullback halfway through my rookie year, I remember walking into the gym and seeing these guys, and they were in an argument. And so how they solved it, they were just bitching at each other back and forth. They put 315 on the squat bar, and they just squatted as many times as you could. And I think one guy did like 49 reps, and the other guy did like 48 reps. And I was like, okay, those are the other 2 fullbacks that I can compete with. That's what I got to do. Okay. And from that point forward, I just trained with those boys, and then it just I just flips the switch. So
Yeah. What about you, Rio?
Like I said, I didn't really train or even work out all that much, if at all, throughout high school. And then I got to university, and lucky enough to be roommates with my trainer now. His name's Miles Methner.
Yeah.
Ended up fucking falling in love with the gym. He really, really helped me fall in love with it. We had a really, really good strength coach our first year, Tyson Staples. And just from the get-go, I really enjoy learning new skills, new tasks, new things like that. That's, I think, why I fell in love with golf. I fell in love with Olympic lifting, man. I fell in love with cleaning, snatching, doing all those movements and whatnot. And it was just so humbling because it's something that I couldn't do right off the jump. And dropping the weights on my head, just not being able to move properly, being slow, looking around, being one of the weaker guys, just kind of motivated me to just keep going in day after day after day after. And then honestly, from there on out, I just fell in love with it. Like, I've been doing it every single day pretty much for the last, 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of it has to go to Tyson Staples and then Miles Methner. They really, really helped me out and made me fall in love with it.
Now, when we're going pro, Mackie in 2018, you played behind Rolly Lumbala. When I got the job last year, and I first got the film and I watched you play, I was like, man, this dude is athletic. You could see your athleticism come through because I had played with a guy like Rob Cote, who has great hands, who has great body control. He can run routes. He can block in the box. He's not the biggest guy either. Like, Rob's a smaller guy. And I played with a guy named J.C. Beaulieu, who in Montreal, who I think is a phenomenal fullback that could play tailback as well. You know, it kind of like Mercer Timms was
Right.
in Hamilton, bigger guy that could run, and he could also do some blocking and catching. And so to be able to be around and see Rob Cote do what he does, and to see JC, and then to see you, I was really blown away by your athletic ability. That's why when I just learned now that you just became a starter your senior year, and it's just like, it blows my mind. Because when I look at a lot of Canadians, I don't see 99% as athletic as you at your size. I mean, look at last year. You got the hurt knee. I don't remember what game it was exactly, but you catch the ball across the middle, you run it down the sideline, you hurdle the guy, and it's just like how many people can do this?
Yeah, it's funny because I owe it to obviously my wide variety of sporting growing up. I mean, I didn't even mention how much ultimate frisbee and everything I was playing. Just like, I was exposed to so many different kinds of sports, and I don't know, when I got to college, I thought I was the athletic guy, but it's just something that I had to just put time in. And then it was actually funny. It was my interview with BC in the combine, and it was Wally Guano that commented on my athleticism. And I thought he absolutely despised me from the first 3 seconds of that interview because he's terrifying. And all of a sudden he's like, nope, I want you to do all the drills with the receiver because I think you have the talent. And I was like, oh shit, okay, Wally, that's Wally Guano talking to me. I've seen you on TV for my entire life. Okay, sweet. And just hearing it from his mouth was the first time that it was kind of cool to hear it. And I wish I got to display it more. Like, I didn't get to catch a lot of passes in my first 2 years. And it was awesome, I think, in my first year learning from Rolly, because him and I are obviously very different players, but
yeah,
learning how efficient he was at the fullback position inside the box was, I think, really what I needed to kind of tie together the package to take over as a starter. And I think for wherever I go and play, whether it's back in BC or free agent, I think learning, like, I remember watching him win every single LPR in training camp with like one arm. Like, he was like smiling and laughing through pass rushes. And I was like, this guy's an absolute animal. I think he's insane.
yeah.
And he was late in his career, and he didn't move as well as he could, but he was so efficient.
Strong.
But at the same time, I think I gave him that little bit of fountain of youth because I came in and I wanted to run routes and jump and hurdle and catch balls. And he was like, okay, if I got to keep this job, I got to do all that shit too.
Yeah.
But it was cool to finally catch one in open space because I think out of every ball I caught in 2019. I got absolutely murdered within 2 yards of catching that ball. And it was the first time since college I got to catch a ball in open space. And it was, I think, a good eye opener for other coaches and other OCs watching, saying, I got tools in the tool bag apart from just being stationary at 3-point position. And me and Mario actually had this conversation. One of our buddies was asking to compare ourselves as athletes. And I think I suit the Canadian game so well because I can use space very well.
Yeah.
Or Mario was just so driven off the line, and like he can talk more about that. But he's so efficient off the line, and I think that's what made him so good coming into the league right away, where we complemented each other, where being out in space and running routes and everything was my strong suit, and Mario coming in right away and pushing me being like a true box player was pretty cool.
Yeah. Rio, you were the total opposite for me. And I've told, and I don't think, Mackie, I don't think you know this. And I'm going to tell everybody right now. And I told Rio at our exit interviews, right? Now, this is my first time doing the whole recruiting thing. I had to do write-ups on every running back and fullback. I had like 30-something guys I'm doing write-ups on. And I had to grade them and everything. And I get to Rio, and I see this big kid out here. And then I see him get beat by a smaller guy, like get pushed back. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I see him run down the field, and I'm like, this can't be true, right? I'm watching everybody, right? And I'm doing a lot of guys. And G-Roy one day goes, what do you think about this Mario Villamizar guy? I said, no. He goes, really? He goes, I kind of like him. I said, no. I said, dude. I was like, one, he doesn't have the foot speed to be a pro. He can't be a pro with his foot speed. And two, he gets beat by smaller guys. And because I'd seen a part of his tape, because we don't look at highlight films.
Yeah.
We look at tape. So I look at part of his tape, and I'm seeing like, okay, on this one, he destroys a guy, but on this one, he's getting beat by a smaller guy in front of him. And I didn't know if it was just effort or if it was just the ability. And I really like this one kid out of Queens who is like 5'8", and he is an animal. And I was like, this is the guy. And they're like, dude, we're not drafting a 5'8" fullback. And I'm like, no, this is the guy. I still think that guy's he could be really good. But he was slower too. But I mean, as far as just his mentality. But then Jarius calls me on draft night. I'm in Minnesota. I'm going to the Garth Brooks concert. I'm in Minnesota.
Nice.
It's like the night before the Garth Brooks concert. I'm out having drinks with some friends. One of the doctors I know that was there doing this convention and things like that I got to speak at. And Jarius calls me. He goes, "Who the hell is Mario Villamizar? Like Villamizar? Who is this?" He goes, "Did you have him on your list?" I said, Jarius, why are you asking me these questions? I've been drinking. I'm out. I'm having a good time. He goes, we just drafted him. I said, drafted him? We drafted Mario? I walk back in. No lie. I walk back in. I sit down. I look at my wife and look at the people I'm with. And I look at him. I go, if this guy steps on the field next year, I'm losing my job. And I was like so terrified. But then through the process, though, I talked to Mario and everything. After the next night, I called you right before I went to the Garth Brooks concert, and we talked. And, you know, it was one of those things. I got a great feeling from him. But when you showed up to training camp, I tell you what, one of the biggest things is that you can never measure someone's heart or their mind, right? The determination that you came to training camp with to learn, to apply. It's like I could tell you something once and you go apply it. And I was like, ooh, that's special. Because a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people can't hear something one time and then go and do it. Like we could work on one thing once and then you go apply it and get it done. And through that whole process of training camp, like after day 2, I looked at Clay and I was like, we got a player. Right. And I said, with these 2 right here, we got a player. And as we kept building and building and building, and Mackie, your knee started hurting, I was like, man, let's get Mario in to relieve Mackie some. It doesn't have to just be all Mackie. Let's start using Mario more. Even when you decided to have your surgery, Mac, they came to me, Ed and Clay, and said, we got a couple guys we want you to look at, we can bring in to start. And I said, no, I think Rio's ready. And
Unreal.
Right. And I went to war for
Appreciate
you.
that, Nick.
We didn't bring anybody else in. The first play, he's supposed to crack the end. He falls down.
Oh, my fucking face.
Marcus Howell looks, Clay,
fucking
Marcus
face,
and Clay
bro.
look at me. Marcus looks over at me. Clay looks at me and goes,
Oh,
did he fall down? I said, it's all right. It's all right.
hey, still made the block. Still made the block.
Right.
Man, I come off and Nick just does this. Nick does it. He takes and passes it over to me. What the fuck are you doing going out there falling on your face? You have one play. I'm like, I'm never playing again, man.
I mean, I understood the immense amount of, I just vouched for you and I was good. I'm good. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But then everybody else is like, okay, we need to see him play at a certain level or we're going to bring somebody else in. You know, with the pros, it's always about bringing somebody in. And that's one of those things, man. You rebounded well. I don't think you played as much the next week because of some of the doubts, but you practiced really well and you started building in practice. And then that next game, you came out and started smashing people. And they started finding ways to get you in the game more. And so that's one of the more special things for me is just see the growth of where you were. And 2, when I talk about this, it was my ignorance because I've never scouted CIS players before. I never knew that guys didn't get the proper coaching like Jamel on blocking. Jamel blocked great last year. We go to practice drills. Jamel's blocking great.
I had a running back coach all through university, but I never had a fullback or tight end coach. I never any blocking or anything that I did that way or anything that I learned was learned through the O-line coach. Yeah. Never had a running back coach, never had a fullback. I mean, I think Mackie can attest to that too. I think a lot of the time we spent with just the O-line. And that's why I block like an O-lineman, right?
Yeah. And that's one of the things. It's like you're bigger.
I block straight up like an lineman.
Yep, you're bigger, you stand up, you lose your leverage, but then you start, when you drive people, man, you can, like you're strong, you do things. But to me, it was my ignorance on understanding that you look at what they can become and not what they are, right? Right. Like I trusted in my ability to say, okay, I know who Mario is, but this we need to improve, right? We need to improve the foot speed. We need to improve this, and this, and the technique. But then everything else is the heart and the effort, and he brought it to it, man. And I told him on our exit interview, I said, I don't think I've been more proud of anything in this year than the ability to see you where you started this year and where you finished this year. And that was
appreciate
that. That was awesome. That was awesome. I know it's
oh man, 2019 was a time. we didn't win, but fuck.
I'm not gonna lie though, fellas.
When
I was sitting there at home and you guys won 5 in a row after I went home, I was like, was I the problem?
It was the fullback.
I was like, I'm telling
you need a fresh blood in there, man.
Oh, I said, I swear to God, if these guys make the playoffs, I am getting on a bus and crutching to wherever they are. And I am watching because I was irate. I was like, I'm gonna be pissed. I got no playoff check.
I think if Mike doesn't break his wrist, I think we do get the playoffs.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm fired up, and pissed off at the same time. I'm like smashing the TV with my crutch.
It was it was an interesting year of how everything went down, but I truly believe, like, especially our room, like one of the proudest moments for me was the last day. Ed said, "Great job" to every running back and fullback. He talked about Mackie. He talked about Mario. He talked about John. He talked about Jamel. He talked about Rut. He talked about Wayne, right? Out of all the other groups, like for me to sit there and hear such positive from the GM about this whole group, not about one person, not about John's first 1,000, not about just somebody having success, but the whole group as a whole and how we performed week in, week out. Because you can go look at all the film and you will see every week we showed up. And I think that's the most important part.
Yep.
I don't think,
There's on
there's zero
specials, there's
issues in that
offense.
room.
Yeah.
And considering we were kind of like, especially Rio and I, it's like we didn't know where to spend time. We were the O-line one day, and then we missed the pass install, and then we missed the pass blitz, or blitz pickup because we were learning routes. And so it was just trial by fire every day. It's like, how do we have time to learn it all? But it's like, I think that just attests the time that we put in as a room, just learning it all. And then, we had our fun too. So it was awesome.
And Mac, you were in a leadership role in your second season. How was that?
Yeah, it was cool. Like
that is on fire, baby.
I remember we were the night after the second preseason game. We, as running back group, were so fired up about what was coming in the season around the corner. We go out and we had a hell of a time downtown, and I'm expecting to show up the next day with the classic, "Hey guys, we're practicing at 9. Welcome to the team," and then go home and sleep. Yeah. And they announced that I was the team captain, and then I got voted in as a PA rep, and I'm sitting there so hungover. I was like, holy crap.
He's drinking his coffee like this. Yeah,
I've got the shakes. But no, it was cool, and I think it was awesome to get the trust from everyone, from the coaching staff, management, and then the players around me. And I didn't even feel like I was in my second year. I feel I was surrounded with great leaders in my first year, like Roley and Sully and Travis Lule, and guys that led such an amazing locker room that in 2019 we had such a different mosaic from guys all over the league, right, that had pieced together for that 19 team once Mike came in. And I felt that just because I was in the locker room just 1 year longer, and I had connections with everyone in the building. But at the same time, everyone on that coaching staff was new. That was your first year as a coach, and Clay's first year, and Taylor's first year. And I think it was cool to just have a great training camp, get a starting role in the league, and then just getting trusted with that leadership role. I don't know, I owed a lot to the coaches that we had. And I think it's cool. And I'm definitely looking forward to going, whether that's back to BC after free agency or somewhere else. And I think I'm going to carry that same energy wherever I go. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, moving forward, what's next, man? Like, what's the process now? I know you prepared for a season. Like, usually you take a couple months off to heal, you go back and prepare for the next season. And I'll start with you, Mac. You're coming off of surgery, rehab, prepare for the season. Now, is there a plan to take some time off, like a month or two away, to just do like light workouts, and then before you get back into that, get ready for the season next year? Or what's the next couple months look like for you?
So, no light work. Like, I think the lightest work was during quarantine. I was stuck in my shed, my backyard. I had no gym access, and so that was the light work. But I got to focus on all the little weaknesses that I had, whether that was postural control with previous shoulder issues, different balance work and jump work and sprint work, that my knee was just that last little bit. But the longer I played this game, it's going to be harder and harder to strength train. So the stronger I can be now, it's inevitably going to start to decline.
Yeah,
whether that's through injuries. And so if I can be as mobile as ever and as strong as ever now, why would I not? If I can add even 5 to 10 pounds on a max lift, whether that's an Olympic lift, a squat, a pull, a bench, whatever it is, and I can also gain strength through range of motion, why would I waste these 3 months that I wouldn't normally have to take it easy? And sure, would I have more time for professional development? Maybe. But at the same time, I can get all that work in and still grow all my own clients and all my own sporting teams, and all the work as a sports performance coach. And I just don't believe in the light work, because what's going to keep me motivated to keep going and keep that competitive drive is going to be working hard. If I take time off, you start finding other ways to pass your time, and it almost goes slower. When I think about, okay, what's my big workout tomorrow, and the day after that, and the week after that, and I do all my own programming, so I know exactly what's coming around the corner. I have everything mapped out up until May of next year, so there's no guessing game, right? Everything I know is lined up in front of me, and obviously professional development in my own career outside of football. There's obviously guessing games with that, with COVID and everything like that. But if I can keep one thing constant from now until February when I'm a free agent, but it doesn't matter where I sign. I'm going to be just as ready come May. So why not just have these next, 7 months lined up, so then it doesn't matter where I'm at, whatever my professional goals are outside of football, I can have something constant to get ready.
That's it. What about you, Rio?
Feel the exact same way. I mean, when else are we going to get an extra 8 months to train, right? The last 8 months have been huge. Anything like from deficiencies or imbalances that I've had, I've been able to attack, and I was able to lean out a little bit more. I mean, I was a little chubby going in my first year, so just having a body composition, I've proven that I can start in the CFL. So now it's really just to push and getting bigger, faster, younger, so that I can not just start 6 games, 22 games, or start 12 games, or from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Building upon what I finished last year, and just having that extra year is going to be huge. I mean, like Mackie said, there's no real time for easy work for us. You've met us. We like getting our hands dirty, getting in there, fucking working hard, doing everything we have to do to win, right, and to be the best that we can be. So continuing to attack for the next 8 months, and fully 2021 comes, we're ready and firing and rolling, man.
What would you say, Rio, is the biggest difference from you training from your first year to training for this season that you just had? So like pre-COVID, you're training to get ready for this season. What was the biggest difference for you physically and mentally of attacking your training?
So like going into my first season, going into now?
Yeah. Or going into this second season, like not now going forward, but going into the second season, like what was the mindset and the difference of the training going into your second season, which is gone now?
I would say I'm training hard, but I'm also training smart.
Yeah.
I find last year, like going into my first year, I was just lift as heavy as I can, do as much as I can at all times. And a lot of the time that doesn't end up being good for you. I want to say you end up risking injuries, risking a lot of different things. Right now, obviously attacking my workouts, but being smart with it. So I know I'm strong enough to, now it's just better. I knew I was big enough before. Now it's just eating properly and having a proper body composition. So just small little tweaks here and there to like my workout and how I'm eating, but not that big of a change. I don't think. I mean, I'm working just as hard. Just how I'm going about it is a little bit different, I want to say.
Man, well, I appreciate you guys coming on here to share some laughs and some jokes and some stories. It's been really fun. Good luck to both of you moving forward. One of the biggest things about my career that I understood was the rest is just as important as the action, right? So being able to get that rest in, being able to allow your body to recover, because you beat your body up so much on the field, it's hard to continue to beat your body up because sometimes it just needs rest. I've seen players go out and have a bad day and they're like, well, why did I have a bad day? I'm like, well, you probably just need to rest, But we train so hard to be the best, and we train because that's what we know. Keep doing what you're doing. Make sure you're getting that rest. Make sure you're pampering yourself, rewarding yourself, and keep being great men of the community, but also keep being great men of faith and moving forward. So I appreciate you guys. Before we go,
yeah, man, I appreciate you having us on. That was awesome.
Before we go, we'll start with you, Dave. Let people know how they can follow you if you're on Instagram or anything, or how they can get a workout or whatever from you.
So you can hit me up on Instagram, just D_Mackie. If you have any questions, whether that's mentorship, workout, health, fitness, leadership, mentorship, life coaching, or you can contact me at mackiemindset@gmail.com. That way you can inquire about different business opportunities or the same thing, just those same questions. If you just have, everyone goes through different struggles at different times in life. And I've been fortunate enough to go through different struggles at a very young age, whether that's financially, family illness, but also got to start my own business and my own career outside of football. And most importantly, I get an opportunity to play pro football at the same time. I've met a lot of different people, and I feel I can help a lot of different people in different journeys. So you can reach out to me, D_Mackie on Instagram or mackiemindset@gmail.com.
Awesome. Rio.
I'm not as cool as that. I mean, you can just reach me at Mario __ Villamizar on Instagram. I mean, same thing as Mac. I mean, I'm not going to give you workouts. I'm not a mentor or anything like that. Like, I don't have my brand or anything like that. That is cool. But yeah, just shoot me a message, shoot me a follow, whatever. I'll shoot a follow back. It's pretty simple.
Hey, women, steer clear.
Absolutely.
Fear the stash.
Awesome. I appreciate you.
This is over.
I appreciate you, boys. And that's another episode.
I told Nick to get rid of.
What?
Nick got to get rid of the goat, man.
No,
He's got to bring just a stash.
I keep it. I did that one year. Look at that. Look at that. If I had just a stash, I did that one year. I went as Hulk Hogan. It was a Halloween thing, so it was November. Halloween was right there together. So I just went with the long stash. See, look at that. Like, if I didn't have the goatee, it'd be like that. No.
What's wrong with that?
That was great.
Macho man. I want to be. All right, this is another episode of Lulu Logic Podcast, and we are out.